Every time you tap your card, withdraw cash, or check your bank balance, you're not just moving money, you're feeding an empire. An empire that doesn't appear on any map. An empire that owns no land, commands no armies, yet controls governments, industries, and lives. Through one invisible weapon, money itself. You may think you're free to earn, save, or spend. What if I told you? Every dollar in your pocket is part of someone else's balance sheet, and that someone decides its value, its flow, and its fate.
Wow.
This is the story of the hidden empire controlling every dollar you spend. It began not with kings or conquerors, but with creditors. In the 17th century, wars were expensive, and kings ran out of gold faster than they could fight. So in 1694, the British monarchy turned to private lenders. In exchange for financing war, those lenders demanded something revolutionary: the power to create money as debt. Thus, the Bank of England was born, the world's first central bank. From that moment, money was no longer tied to golden vaults. It became a promise, backed by debt, issued by institutions rather than rulers. And behind those institutions were not elected officials, but shareholders, private financiers, who could print, credit, and earn interest from entire nations. The seed of the empire had been planted. By the 20th century, the system had evolved. Nations didn't just borrow, they built their entire economies on borrowing. In 1913, a secret meeting on Jekyll Island, off the coast of Georgia, brought together a handful of the world's most powerful bankers. Their mission: to design a centralized banking system that would protect their wealth and stabilize markets, at least in theory. The result? The Federal Reserve System, the private bank behind America's currency. What few understood then was that the Federal Reserve wasn't truly federal. It was a hybrid, public in name, but controlled by private banking interests. And with that creation, control over money quietly shifted from government to boardrooms. When World War I erupted soon after, those same bankers financed both sides, lending billions, charging interest, and ensuring that the world remained in their debt. The empire no longer needed soldiers. It had accountants. But every empire eventually faces its own contradictions. The Great Depression revealed a cruel truth when banks failed. Governments didn't control the money controlled the government. So, in 1933, President Franklin D. Roosevelt made a desperate move. He seized all private gold holdings and banned citizens from owning it. From that day on, Americans could no longer exchange dollars for gold. Their wealth became entirely dependent on trust, faith, and paper promises. And then came 1971. President Richard Nixon, under pressure from mounting debt and inflation, did what economists thought unthinkable. Overnight, the US dollar, once backed by gold, became a fiat currency, backed by nothing but government decree. Money became pure belief, a digital illusion managed by central banks. It was the final transformation. The hidden empire no longer needed gold, resources, or even approval. All it needed was confidence and the ability to print. Once the dollar became untethered, the world followed. Europe, Asia, Africa, all built their economies around the same debt-based system. The empire expanded silently through international institutions like the IMF and the World Bank. Countries in crisis borrowed for survival, trapped in cycles of interest payments that would never end. Debt became the most profitable product in human history. Today, the numbers are staggering. Global debt exceeds $315 trillion, more than 3 times the world's total GDP, for every $1 of real wealth. There are dozens of dollars in debt, and every dollar you earn exists only because someone else owes it. The hidden empire doesn't need to conquer nations. It just needs them to borrow, because debt is control, and interest is obedience. Every time the system wobbles, the same cycle repeats: crisis, panic, rescue, print. In 2008, the global financial system nearly collapsed. The solution: trillions in bailouts, not for people, but for banks. Governments borrowed even more, central banks created digital money, and the empire emerged stronger than ever. Then came 2020, pandemic lockdowns, stimulus spending, and unprecedented money printing. In a single year, more dollars were created than in the entire first century of U.S. history. Inflation soared. The cost of living exploded. But the empire's profits? record-breaking. And now, as nations drown in debt, the next evolution begins: central bank digital currencies. Programmable money, trackable, controllable, and if necessary, switchable off. Money is no longer just a medium of exchange. It's becoming a tool of compliance. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. The same mechanisms that enslaved kingdoms through gold-backed loans now control nations through digital debt. The same banks that once financed wars now finance governments, corporations, and even your personal credit card. The system thrives on illusion that money has value, that debt can grow forever, that someone, somewhere, will always pay it back. But as global debt soars past unsustainable levels, the cracks are widening. Every currency in history has eventually failed. The question is not if this empire will collapse, but when. So what can we learn from this story? The rise of the hidden empire that controls every dollar you spend? Money is not wealth. It's a claim on someone else's promise. Real wealth lies in what cannot be printed: skills, knowledge, resources, independence. Debt is designed, not accidental. It's the foundation of control, keeping individuals, businesses, and governments reliant on a system they don't understand. Every financial collapse in history has followed the same pattern: expansion, illusion, and implosion. Understanding this pattern is the first step to escaping it. The hidden empire doesn't need to hide because most people never look. But now. If you found this story revealing, subscribe to The Financial Deception for more cinematic investigations into how money, power, and control shape our world. Because the next time you spend $1, remember it's not just currency, it's a piece of the empire.